Mary was the kind of woman people described as a warm cup of tea. Quiet. Mannered. The sort who always used coasters even when no one was watching. She moved through life with such gentle intention that even the sound of her footsteps on hardwood floors barely registered. We'd been married for 5 years, and not once had she raised her voice. Not once had she slammed a door. In fact, in our entire relationship, I couldn't recall a single moment where she'd reacted with anything stronger than a sigh or a soft smile. I worked a standard office job, 9 to 5, nothing fancy. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, shared quiet dinners, read books before bed, watered our balcony plants on weekends. It was the kind of life you could sleepwalk through. Peaceful. Predictable. Comfortable. I thought that was all there was to it. Then her sister Elizabeth moved in. It was framed as temporary. Just until she found her footing. A few weeks at most, Mary had said, her voice wrapped in warmth like always. I didn't question it. I trusted her. After all, she was Mary. The woman who left handwritten notes in my lunchbox and always remembered to replace the ice cube tray. Elizabeth arrived with 3 oversized suitcases, a designer handbag she couldn't afford, and an attitude that reeked of entitlement. From the moment she stepped into our home, she acted like it was hers. She threw her heels on our coffee table, left makeup bottles across the bathroom counter, and within hours had claimed the entire hallway closet for herself. I was shocked. Mary wasn't. She just smiled. And that's when I should have known something was off. Because Mary didn't flinch. Not once. She welcomed Elizabeth in with a calmness that bordered on eerie. She gave up her side of the bathroom. Offered her favorite robe. Even made her a welcome dinner. But something in the way she stirred the soup that night, slow, methodical, eyes lowered but calculating, made my stomach twist. She smiled like always, but behind that smile, a ledger was opening. Not the kind of ledger you keep in QuickBooks. The kind you keep in your mind. Where every small trespass gets quietly recorded, filed, and timestamped. I started noticing things. Subtle things. Mary moved her jewelry box into the top shelf of our bedroom closet, behind my winter coats. She added a passcode to her iPad. She began wiping down the bathroom counters twice a day instead of once, her lips pressed together in a flat line, her expression unreadable. She'd always been calm, but this was something else. This wasn't politeness. This was preparation. Elizabeth, of course, kept pushing. She criticized our couch. Our car. Our Wi-Fi speed. One evening, I came home to find her trying on Mary's shoes and laughing into her phone about how behind our apartment decor was. I expected Mary to get upset. To snap. To finally break that porcelain exterior. She didn't. Instead, she brewed a pot of tea, sat beside Elizabeth on the couch, and asked how her job hunt was going. That night, as I lay in bed beside my wife, staring at the ceiling, I realized I didn't understand her at all. I thought I married someone quiet because she feared confrontation. I was wrong. Mary wasn't quiet because she was weak. She was quiet because she didn't need noise to win. Because what looked like kindness was just the opening move. Mary and I met at a bookstore. She was sitting on the floor in the aisle between psychology and personal finance, knees tucked under her, completely absorbed in a book she hadn't even taken off the shelf. I remember watching her from a few feet away, noticing the way she tilted her head to the side when she read, like she was trying to absorb every word into her bones. She didn't notice me then. She was too focused. Not intense. Just calm. That calmness followed her everywhere. Our first date was at a tiny ramen bar. She ordered quietly, listened more than she spoke, and laughed with the kind of softness you feel in your chest. I remember thinking she was the most peaceful person I'd ever met. Not passive. Just grounded. Like she lived in a different frequency than the rest of us, where nothing needed to be forced, and kindness was currency. When we got married, life with Mary was exactly what I'd hoped it would be, gentle routines, quiet mornings, unspoken understanding. She never criticized. Never raised her voice. She didn't nag or sulk. When I left dishes in the sink, she'd clean them without a word. When I forgot our anniversary one year, she didn't cry or accuse, just handed me a card the next morning and made my favorite breakfast. It was like being loved by the sea. Still on the surface, deep beneath. I'd never seen her angry. Not even once. Her mother, Brenda, called often. Usually with the same tone, faux sweetness layered over subtle pressure. Mary would put her on speaker while she folded laundry or watered the plants. "Mary, your sister's struggling again. Just a little help this month. She's had such a hard life, you know. Not everyone gets as lucky as you." Lucky. That was the word they always used. Because Mary married first. Because she had a stable income. Because she was quiet and easygoing. Because she didn't fight back. Elizabeth was the opposite. Younger by 3 years, she never stayed in one job longer than a season. She floated from internships to brand deals to wellness retreats she found on TikTok. Her hobbies included filming unboxing videos for products she couldn't afford and uploading inspirational quotes she didn't believe in. She never paid rent. Never saved money. But she always had the newest phone. And somehow, she was always the victim. She and Mary weren't close growing up. But that didn't stop Brenda from using their relationship as leverage. "Mary, just for a little while. You have the space. She needs a safe environment to look for work. Mary, you're so lucky you married well. Your sister needs support. Mary, this is what family does. You help the ones who can't help themselves." And Mary always said yes. That was her flaw, I thought. She was too accommodating. Too forgiving. Too unwilling to draw a line. So when Elizabeth called one afternoon crying, saying she'd been laid off, her lease was ending, and she had nowhere to go, it wasn't a surprise that Mary opened the door without hesitation. "I told her she can stay a few days," Mary said, placing her phone face down on the table. I raised an eyebrow. "Days?" "She's family," she replied, with that same soft voice she used when telling me the soup wasn't hot enough. I didn't argue. Arguing with Mary felt like trying to wrestle fog. You'd just end up tired and empty-handed. What I didn't know was that this wasn't Mary being passive. It was Mary setting the table. Alexander was their older brother. Not much older than Mary, but you'd think he was 20 years ahead by the way the family treated him. The golden boy. The one with potential. The one Brenda insisted would make it big any day now. He'd changed careers 5 times. Spent a fortune on business coaching, sales seminars, and e-commerce flops. He was always in between jobs, yet somehow always needed help. New car lease? Covered. Engagement ring for a girl who left him in 3 months. Brenda guilt-tripped Mary into paying for it. Hospital copay when he fell off a rented jet ski during networking weekend? Mary wired the money the same night. She never complained. She never fought. She just made another transfer. "You're so lucky, Mary," Brenda would repeat like a prayer. "Your husband is kind. You have a good home. Your life is stable." But luck wasn't what built our life. Mary worked 2 jobs out of college. She studied at night while her friends partied. She planned everything, savings, investments, even the furniture in our apartment. She never bought anything full price. She never splurged. Her only indulgence was her skincare shelf, and even that was immaculately organized and always under budget. Elizabeth arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. She wore oversized sunglasses, leggings that looked like they cost more than our monthly groceries, and a pout that would have made a toddler proud. Mary hugged her like she meant it. "Frank," Elizabeth said, dramatically waving a hand, "it's been so long. Love what you've done with the place." "Very minimal." "It hasn't changed in 3 years," I replied flatly. "Oh." She blinked. Well, retro's in again. She walked in like she owned the floorboards. Dropped her bags in the hallway, tossed her denim jacket over the couch, and immediately asked if the Wi-Fi password was still the same. I watched Mary. She didn't react. She simply smiled and said, "The guest room's ready." That was a lie. Our second bedroom was Mary's workspace, an organized haven of mood boards, fabric swatches, stacked sketchpads, and a second desk we bought during the pandemic when her freelance work picked up. It wasn't just a room. It was hers. A piece of her independence. "I'll move my things out tonight," she added. "We can set up the camping cot until we get something better." She said it so gently, like she was suggesting we try a new brand of tea. I wanted to protest. I almost did. But the look in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't blank. It was deliberate. Elizabeth made herself at home within hours. She criticized our couch. Claimed our mattress hurt her back. Complained about the cheap shampoo in the bathroom. The same bottle Mary had imported from Japan. That night, while Mary folded Elizabeth's towels, I leaned against the doorway and whispered, "Why are you doing all this? This isn't a few days. She's nesting." Mary looked up, smiled softly, and said, "Let her." 2 words. That's all. But the way she said them chilled me. Because it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. That night, as I drifted to sleep, I watched Mary's silhouette in the glow of her phone screen. She wasn't doom-scrolling. She was building an Amazon cart. A new lockbox. A portable closet. A folding room divider. Mary was preparing. And I finally realized, maybe she had been saying yes all these years not because she didn't know how to say no, but because she was waiting for the right moment to make it stick. By the third day, Elizabeth was everywhere. Her presence wasn't loud in the traditional sense, she wasn't blasting music or throwing tantrums. She didn't need to be. She occupied space with a kind of effortless entitlement, the way someone might walk barefoot across your carpet with wet shoes and assume you'd thank them for moisturizing the floor. She used Mary's imported shampoo without asking, then left a 2-star review on the bathroom mirror in lipstick, "Smells weird." She borrowed my hoodie and stretched out the sleeves. She started calling Mary's skincare shelf the free samples counter. Every morning, she parked herself at the dining table and swiped through job apps with her legs propped on a chair, like she was CEO of a collapsing empire. "Frank," she said one afternoon, wrinkling her nose as she swirled coffee in her mug, "don't take this the wrong way, but, your car. It's, like, so vintage. Is that on purpose?" "It's paid off," I replied. "Cute," she said, smiling without humor. "But maybe think about trading up? Your wife deserves something shinier." Mary was beside her, slicing cucumbers with precise, quiet strokes. She didn't look up. She didn't say a word. That evening, Elizabeth announced she didn't feel like takeout again. "Mary, can you make your roasted chicken? The one from your Instagram stories?" Frankly, I was done. "We weren't planning to cook tonight," I said. Mary beat me to it. "Of course," she replied sweetly, "I'll make it just like last time." And she did. She roasted the chicken. She added truffle mashed potatoes. She folded cloth napkins into lotus shapes. Elizabeth Instagrammed the entire thing with the caption, "At my sister's, finally teaching her some elegance." I expected Mary to snap. Or at least stop being so polite. She didn't. Instead, she did something strange. After Elizabeth went to bed, Mary opened her vanity drawer, removed her skincare, and carefully packed every item into a hard-shelled suitcase. A new one. Shiny. Silver. Combination lock. She clicked it shut, rolled it to our bedroom closet, and slid it behind our coats. I stood in the doorway, confused. "You're locking up your lotion?" Hum. Her voice was soft. She didn't offer more. The next morning, Elizabeth couldn't find the shampoo. "Mary, where's your good stuff?" The one that smells like flowers and ambition. I put it away. It doesn't suit your hair type, Mary replied from the kitchen, pouring warm water into the French press. There's another bottle under the sink. It was subtle. Not cruel. Not even unkind. But definite. Later, I noticed the drawers in Mary's workspace now had tiny golden locks on them, quiet little latches that blended with the furniture but didn't belong there before. Is something missing? I asked. No, she said, closing a drawer and sliding the key into her pocket. Just organizing. Elizabeth kept testing limits. She used our towels and left them soaked on the floor. She borrowed Mary's slippers and left them near the litter box. She suggested we should try hosting a TikTok dinner party to boost our social status. She even asked me to give her a ride to a friend's apartment, 20 miles across town, because she was too emotionally drained to Uber. Mary agreed to everything. Sure. Okay. No problem. Every response laced with perfect composure, delivered with a smile so pleasant it left no room for argument. But I started to notice a pattern. Every time Elizabeth crossed a boundary, Mary responded not with resistance, but with kindness so tailored, so exact, it started to feel surgical. After Elizabeth criticized our couch again, called it pre-divorce furniture, Mary vacuumed it meticulously, then placed a folded, hand-stitched quilt over the backrest. The pattern on the quilt? Tiny foxes. Sharp-eyed. Smiling. After Elizabeth drank half a bottle of Mary's sparkling water stash, Mary bought a mini fridge and placed it in our bedroom. Oh, just easier this way, she told me when I asked. Less running back and forth. Elizabeth began leaving makeup scattered across the bathroom sink. Foundation smudges. Mascara tubes. Lip liners without caps. Mary said nothing. But the next morning, the entire bathroom counter was cleared. Her own products? Gone. Replaced by a dollar store soap and a single roll of toilet paper. I stared. Where's your stuff? Mary shrugged. I'm keeping it elsewhere for now. I don't want anything getting lost. One night, I caught her at the kitchen table with a small notebook. She was writing quietly, pausing between entries. When I walked closer, she turned the page before I could read it. What's that? I asked. Just keeping track of things, she said with a small smile. It helps me stay organized. That night, she made Elizabeth's favorite dish, saffron rice and lamb stew. Took her nearly 2 hours. Elizabeth devoured it, then said it needed a bit more salt. Mary just nodded. Thank you for the feedback. Later that evening, I walked into our bedroom and found Mary packing away the pressure cooker. She wasn't storing it in the kitchen. She was putting it in the luggage with the skincare. You're packing your cookware? It's better if we simplify for a while, she said gently. I didn't understand the plan. I only knew that Mary was doing what she always did, calmly, precisely, without complaint. And every time Elizabeth took more, Mary gave a little, then quietly took something else away. Space. Access. Privilege. Her smile remained. But behind it, I started to see what I'd missed for years. Mary wasn't avoiding conflict. She was drawing the battlefield. Not in ink. Not in anger. In silence. Every drawer she locked. Every item she relocated. Every okay she spoke. Wasn't surrender. It was a move. It was around the second week when I started to feel like I was the one losing my mind. Elizabeth had settled in fully, slippers kicked off wherever she pleased, Bluetooth speaker echoing meditation podcasts through the hallway, and a habit of ordering online packages under Mary's name to make sure they weren't returned to sender. At first, I thought Mary was simply being too accommodating. Then I began to wonder if I was the one who didn't understand something. One evening I walked into the bedroom and found Elizabeth twirling in front of Mary's full-length mirror, wearing one of Mary's dresses. A soft cream wraparound she only wore on special occasions. The tag was still on it. Elizabeth spun around dramatically, holding the sides of the skirt out like it was a costume. I needed something classy to wear to this coffee date. That's not a problem, right? She asked, not really asking. I opened my mouth, but Mary beat me to it. You look lovely, she said from the doorway, voice even, no hint of edge. Elizabeth beamed and turned back to the mirror. I mean, you weren't really wearing it. And let's be honest, it fits me better. I looked at Mary. Nothing. Just a faint, unreadable smile. The next morning, I went to take a shower. The bathroom door was locked. Elizabeth? I called. Occupied, came the reply. God, I hate that the only bathroom is inside your room. So weird. The door opened a few minutes later. Steam spilled out, along with the overpowering scent of Mary's expensive rose body wash. Elizabeth walked out in a towel, unfazed, and gave me a once-over. You're up early. Hope I didn't use all the hot water. She patted away without another word. I found my towel soaked on the floor. My razor missing. The shampoo bottle half empty. When I mentioned it to Mary later, she just smiled. She's not used to sharing space. She'll adjust. Mary, she's turning our home into a hotel. She's family. That line again. I was beginning to hate how softly she said it. At dinner, Elizabeth asked if we could make the couch more lounging friendly. When I said it wasn't a good idea to move the back cushions, we'd already replaced them once, she tilted her head at me. Frank, why are you always so stiff? Maybe you should meditate or something. Before I could respond, Mary spoke. That's a good idea, she said, calmly placing a napkin on Elizabeth's lap. Frank, let's try meditating together this weekend. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart beating slow and heavy. Was I imagining it? Was Mary too gentle for her own good, or was there something happening beneath the surface? I turned toward her. She was writing in that small notebook again. Slow, deliberate. Her brows gently furrowed, her hand steady. What are you writing? I asked. She looked up, surprised. Just thoughts. May I see? She hesitated. Then she turned the book and handed it to me. I flipped it open. The handwriting was immaculate. Columns and dates. Names. Amounts. Situations. 2017, Alexander, car down payment, $3,500, unpaid. 2018, Elizabeth, credit card payoff, $1,200, unpaid. 2019, Brenda, dental surgery, $800, partial repayment. 2020, Alexander, rent support, $2,000, unpaid. 2021, Brenda, wedding gift for cousin, $600, unpaid. 2022, Elizabeth, emergency travel, $900, unpaid. 2023, Alexander, startup pitch investment, $4,500, unpaid. Page after page. She wasn't keeping score. She was keeping history. My breath caught. You've been tracking this? Mary nodded. I thought you didn't care about the money. I don't, she said. But they do. I looked down at the total column. Nearly $17,000 across 7 years. All given in small, gilt-colored packages. None of it returned. Not even acknowledged. She took the notebook back, closed it, and placed it gently in the drawer. No lock. No dramatics. That night, I watched her sleep. Peaceful. Still. I couldn't reconcile the woman beside me with the one who kept a ledger so sharp it cut me just reading it. The next day, Elizabeth upped the stakes. She stood in the kitchen in full makeup, scrolling through her phone. Mary, she said casually, Alex just called. He's been offered this amazing apartment near downtown. But he needs a down payment like, this week. You know how real estate moves fast. And he's doing so well lately. If he misses this, it'll kill his momentum. Mary kept slicing apples. Elizabeth didn't stop. I was thinking maybe we could help. Just until his new project takes off. Maybe $10,000. Or even $8,000 if he borrows the rest from a friend. I stiffened. And while we're at it, Elizabeth continued, my car's giving me issues again. It's always something with that thing. If I had a newer model, I could actually get to interviews without worrying about it breaking down. She turned to Mary. You've got great credit, right? Could you co-sign something small? Just like a bridge loan. Mary paused, wiped her hands with a dish towel, and turned around. Okay. Elizabeth's eyes lit up. I, however, felt a wave of nausea. Because I'd heard Mary say okay many times before. But never like this. Her tone didn't rise. It didn't fall. It was level. Like water covering a well-laid trap. Later, after dinner, I pulled her aside. Mary, I whispered, you're not seriously going to give them more money, are you? She tilted her head, smiling faintly. I said okay. Yeah. But what does that mean? It means I'll take care of it. You've already taken care of everything. You're always the one they lean on. And they never stop. She walked over to her desk, pulled out the notebook, and opened to a blank page. I know. She began to write. I didn't ask what. Because I realized then that my wife didn't need to yell. She didn't need to resist. She was already 5 steps ahead. And that come okay? It scared me more than any shouting match ever could. The invitation arrived midweek in the family group chat. Brenda's message was warm on the surface, but it had the unmistakable weight of obligation beneath it. Dinner at our place this Saturday. Just a small get-together. Everyone's invited. Let's catch up. It's been too long. The emoji she added at the end, smiling face with hearts, only made it worse. Mary read it without flinching. We should go, she said. I wasn't so sure. You know this isn't just dinner. I know, she replied, closing the app, but if we don't show up, we'll look guilty. That's what they want. Saturday evening, we arrived with a bottle of wine and a box of pastries, neutral gifts, impossible to weaponize. Brenda greeted us with sugary affection, hugging Mary tightly and pretending the last few weeks hadn't happened. Her makeup was heavier than usual, smile wider, words stickier. The house was full. Elizabeth was already there, dressed to impress, holding court near the fireplace. Alexander sat beside her, flipping through photos of some condo listing on his phone. Aunts, uncles, cousins we hadn't seen in months hovered around, making small talk, watching Mary out of the corners of their eyes. Dinner was served with too much cheer. The first half hour passed in strained civility. Brenda asked about our work. Uncle Raymond complimented Mary's dress. Elizabeth laughed too loudly at nothing. Then the atmosphere shifted. It began with Mary's aunt, sharp voice, the kind that carried even when it wasn't trying. Mary, she said, laying her fork down delicately, I don't mean to meddle, but I've heard you're having trouble helping your brother. Is that true? The table quieted. I wouldn't call it trouble, Mary said softly. Uncle Thomas leaned in. When you were in college, we all helped. Your mom took out a loan for your tuition. We supported you when you had nothing. Family means lifting each other up. Alexander jumped in. It's just a down payment. I already found the place. I've been approved, just short on the last bit. It's not even for me, it's for my future wife. We're trying to build something. I looked at Mary. She didn't flinch. Cousin Dana added, and Elizabeth's been struggling too. It's not easy for women these days, especially with this economy. You're doing well. Don't forget where you came from. Elizabeth smiled sweetly. We know Mary's always been the rock in this family. She's just a little stressed lately. But I told Mom she'd come through like she always does. Brenda sighed dramatically. Sweetheart, your heart's always been big. But lately, I worry you're becoming distant. Don't let pride get in the way of love. Don't let your brother's marriage fall apart because of a number in a bank account. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't kind. It was a firing squad disguised as a family dinner. Mary reached for her wine glass. Everyone watched, hopeful. She set it down. Then, without a word, she pulled out her phone. What's that? Brenda asked, confused. Mary tapped the screen a few times. Then placed the phone in the center of the table. Something I thought everyone should hear. She pressed play. The room was silent. Then Elizabeth's voice, clear and smug, poured from the speaker. Trust me, my sister's a total pushover. You just have to corner her the right way. She hates conflict. Frank? He's harmless. She'll crack. She always does. My mom's brilliant. Once everyone pressures her, we'll get the $80K, easy. After that, I'm gonna work on getting them to co-sign for a car. A gasp. Then silence so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. Elizabeth turned pale. Her lips moved, but nothing came out. Mary reached for her wine glass again. This time, she didn't lift it. Just stared at the swirling red inside. I won't be drinking, she said calmly. I don't take poison. No one spoke. Aunt Grace looked down at her plate. Uncle Thomas cleared his throat and pretended to check his phone. Cousin Dana reached for a napkin and dabbed a spot that didn't exist. Alexander looked like he wanted to disappear. Brenda's mouth opened. Then closed. Then opened again, but the words were gone. Elizabeth finally managed to stand. You recorded me? Mary looked up. You were on speaker. In our living room. Talking loud enough to wake the cat. That's illegal. Mary smiled faintly. Then feel free to press charges. Everyone turned toward her. No one dared to blink. Because the woman sitting before them wasn't the pushover they expected. She wasn't the sweet, quiet Mary they thought they could corner. She was steel wrapped in silk. Elizabeth sat down hard, her eyes wide, hands trembling in her lap. Mary picked up her phone and stopped the recording. No drama. No raised voice. No accusations. Just a quiet execution. Frankly, I was in awe. And judging by the stunned silence around the table, so was everyone else. Mary turned to Brenda. Would you like to continue dinner, or shall we end it here? Brenda swallowed. Dinner's fine. Mary nodded. Then let's eat. She passed the bread basket to her left as if nothing had happened. And every person at that table realized they'd just witnessed something terrifying. A woman who smiled with a scalpel in her hand. Sunday morning sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, painting gold over the quiet living room. Mary sat at the dining table, calm as ever, a small leather binder closed in front of her. She hadn't said a word yet. Brenda arrived first, early and flustered, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Sweetheart, I just wanted to talk before everyone gets here. There's been some confusion. Mary didn't rise. Sit. Brenda hesitated, then lowered herself into the chair across from her daughter. Look, your sister's been under a lot of stress. And Alexander's. Mary opened the binder with a soft snap. 7 years, she said, almost tenderly, like reciting the lifespan of a beloved pet. Every time you called it a gift, every time you said it was just helping family, I wrote it down. She turned the binder toward Brenda. Column after column. Precise handwriting. Dates. Amounts. Descriptions. $800, Elizabeth's first apartment deposit. Never repaid. $240, Alexander's failed podcast equipment. An investment. $1,500, Brenda's dental procedure. Called a loan, forgotten within months. $1,200, emergency dress shopping for Elizabeth's gala that never happened. Page after page. Brenda's mouth parted in disbelief. Mary continued, I didn't record it out of bitterness. I needed to know if I was crazy. Turns out, I'm just well documented. The front door opened. Frank stepped in quietly. He gave Brenda a polite nod, then stood by Mary's side without a word. Moments later, Alexander strolled in. Why was I told to be here promptly at 10? I have a showing in. He froze. The binder was now facing him. Mary flipped to the section with his name. $3,500, lost investment in crypto. $2,800, bail money. Never repaid. $900, gym startup. Failed in 3 months. What is this? Alexander asked, half amused, half annoyed. It's everything, Mary replied. All of it. 7 years of taking care of things you insisted were temporary. All debts, now documented. No drama. Just clarity. He scoffed. You're really keeping score? No. I'm closing the books. Mary reached beneath the table and pulled out a small paper shredder. With slow precision, she began tearing each page from the binder and feeding it into the whirring teeth. Rip. Buzz. Gone. Brenda gasped. Wait. You don't need to do that. Mary didn't stop. Rip. Buzz. Gone. I do, she said softly. Because once I destroy the record, I no longer owe you anything. You said I should forgive. This is forgiveness. Alexander stepped back like she was casting a spell. You should keep copies, Brenda started. Mary's eyes met hers. Why? So you can pretend it didn't exist? Rip. Buzz. Gone. Frank said nothing. He just watched, his heart hammering. This wasn't vengeance. It was exorcism. When the last page vanished, Mary unplugged the shredder and set the empty binder down like a tombstone. The debt is settled. And so is the obligation. Brenda opened and closed her mouth. We didn't mean to. Mary raised a hand. I'm not asking for apologies. I'm giving resolutions. She pulled 2 thick white envelopes from a folder and slid them across the table, one to Elizabeth, who had quietly walked in midway and was now trying not to cry, and one to Alexander. Elizabeth opened hers, hands trembling. A letter. A contract. A job offer. Remote logistics support role. Full-time. $15,000 a month. Fully paid housing. Remote mountain town. Cold winters. No malls. No nightlife. Elizabeth stared at the terms. This can't be real. It is. They'll be expecting your reply in 24 hours. Brenda looked at her youngest daughter. That's a great salary. In a prison, Elizabeth snapped. I'm not doing this. Mary nodded. That's fine. You can decline. But if you do, I'll upload the full recording, the one where you mocked everyone in this room, to the family chat. Elizabeth froze. You wouldn't. I would, Mary said. But it's not to ruin you. It's to protect myself. And Frank. Elizabeth swallowed hard. Mary's voice softened. Take the job. Save your dignity. It comes with health insurance and space to grow. Elizabeth looked at Frank, at Brenda, then back to Mary. I'll take it. Mary turned to Alexander. He was already shaking his head. You didn't. I did, Mary replied. Same company. Same town. Different department. They need a project coordinator. I forwarded your resume. Are you insane? No. Just thorough. You both wanted support. Now you can support each other. Alexander looked ready to throw the envelope. Mary spoke again, quiet and sharp. Throw it, and I post your bail record. He lowered his hand. Frank watched it unfold in silence. All this time he thought she was simply holding on, turns out, she'd been sharpening her blade in the dark. Mary didn't raise her voice once. She didn't cry. She didn't seek revenge. She engineered exits. Brenda tried one last time. But, we're family. Mary smiled. Exactly. And because of that, I won't ruin you. But I won't carry you anymore. Frank finally spoke. You knew. All along. I knew, Mary replied without looking at him. But if I pushed too soon, they'd have played victim. If I waited too long, I'd break. This was the only way. He looked at her, really looked, and realized the woman he married wasn't quiet. She was composed. She wasn't soft. She was steel and silk. The room felt colder now. Not from anger. From truth. Mary stood, brushing imaginary crumbs from her lap. I'll see you both off at the airport Monday. Elizabeth sniffled. Alexander gritted his teeth. Brenda just sat there, stunned. Frank followed Mary as she walked to the kitchen, the sound of her heels measured and calm. When they were alone, he took her hand. She looked up. I was wrong, he said. About what? You weren't letting them walk all over you. You were waiting for the right place to bury them. Mary gave him a small smile. Not bury. Relocate. He pulled her close. She didn't shake. Didn't sigh. She just exhaled slowly. And for the first time in years, Frank felt safe. Because Mary hadn't fought for vengeance. She'd fought for peace. The departure was uneventful, deliberately so. Elizabeth and Alexander boarded their early morning flight in silence. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just an exchange of boarding passes and weary glares as they passed through the security checkpoint. Mary had driven them herself, a final act of civility. She didn't speak much on the way. Just classical music playing low on the radio, filling the car with the kind of quiet that stung worse than shouting. At the gate, Elizabeth turned to say something, perhaps to plead, perhaps to protest, but Mary simply nodded once. This is a chance, she said. Take it. Alexander looked like he wanted to snap back. But then he remembered the audio files Mary had already encrypted and time-scheduled to send if they retaliated. He said nothing. And just like that, they were gone. Peace returned, but it didn't arrive with fanfare. It came in the form of still mornings, where the coffee stayed warm and untouched as the sunrise filtered through soft curtains. It came in the way Frank no longer tensed at the sound of a phone buzz. It came in empty chairs at family dinners and voicemail inboxes that no longer asked for just one more favor. It was quiet. Unfamiliar, at first. But gradually, it became something else. Sacred. Frank found himself watching Mary more than he used to. The way she folded laundry, her motions precise. The way she touched the small of his back as she passed him in the kitchen. The way she no longer flinched when he said, "You okay?" She wasn't healing. She had healed. One evening, while watering the small garden outside, Frank turned to her and said, almost to himself, "You never raised your voice." Mary blinked, confused. He smiled. "You raised the walls around our peace instead." She said nothing. Just placed the watering can down and leaned her head gently on his shoulder. It should have ended there. But the past has a habit of knocking twice. Brenda called again 2 weeks later. Frank wasn't home. Mary debated letting it go to voicemail, but something in her gut told her to answer. She did. Brenda's voice was tight. Shaky. "You made me look like a criminal in front of my own family." Mary remained silent. "They think I used you." Her voice broke. "You don't understand what I've been through, Mary. You think you're so strong now with your recordings and your contracts." Mary's voice cut through the rant like a blade wrapped in velvet. If you want to tell the neighbors, go ahead. If you want to gather your church friends, your bridge club, and tell them what I did, be my guest. Brenda gasped, caught off guard by the calm. But just be sure, Mary continued, to also tell them why you needed $70,000 in 5 years. Be sure to explain why Elizabeth thought she could guilt me into 80 more. Be sure to mention the gala dress I paid for, the car loan I forgave, and the dental surgery you said was life-threatening, but then posted vacation pictures a week later. Mary. Oh. And I spoke to Alexander's new employer last week, Mary added, smoothly. Lovely man. He said your son is already under contract for 1 full year. Early termination comes with a 6-month salary clawback. So even if he wants to quit, he'll owe them. Silence. You wanted control, Brenda. You thought guilt was power, Mary said. But peace is power. And I won't let you touch it again. Click. She blocked the number. Frank came home to find her on the porch, sipping tea. Was that her? He asked. Mary gave a small shrug. It was her final attempt. The last gust before the storm breaks. Months passed. Autumn came and left its gold on the trees. Mary and Frank found a rhythm again, one that didn't involve cleaning up emotional wreckage or preparing for the next emotional ambush. They traveled once, just a small weekend drive upstate. Mary laughed for the first time in ages at a bakery Frank insisted on stopping at. He bought 6 croissants. They only needed 2. But the peace didn't last forever. One day, a call came, not from Brenda, but about her. Illness. Something sudden. Something aggressive. No one else in the family had stepped up to care for her. Mary said nothing for a long time. Then quietly packed a bag with essentials and told Frank she'd be back in a few days. Brenda was stunned when Mary arrived. She didn't offer apologies. She didn't cry. Mary didn't expect her to. She stayed for 3 days. Cooked when Brenda couldn't move. Cleaned the house. Paid a private nurse out of pocket. Left the fridge full before she left. She never mentioned the past. Not once. Forgiveness didn't come in words. It came in the way Mary adjusted her mother's pillow when Brenda winced. It came in silence. The kind that only happens when a wound no longer needs to bleed. Frank watched her return home like nothing had happened. But he saw it, how her shoulders were a little straighter. How her sleep was deeper. How the war inside her had gone quiet. Why did you go? He asked one night, unable to help himself. Mary looked at him with a softness that broke his heart. I didn't go for her, she said. I went for me. Because I don't want to carry their poison one day longer than necessary. She opened a small leather-bound book in her hands. Not the old ledger. That was gone. This one was new. Handwritten across the front in careful gold ink. Our beginning, for baby number 1. Frank's throat caught. Inside were notes. Names they liked. Nursery colors. Crayon drawings of ideas Mary wanted to paint on the walls. Dreams she had paused for years. Now, finally, resuming. Frank ran his fingers over the page, silent for a long time. Then he kissed her forehead and whispered, "We're going to be the kind of family that starts clean." Mary smiled. Not a forced smile. Not a performative one. A real one. The first in a long time. Later, Frank would write something in his journal, a quiet reflection he never intended to share, but eventually turned into a letter for their child. My wife was never a delicate flower. She was the storm shelter built around our home. Quiet. Strong. Unshakable. When the world fell apart around us, she didn't raise her voice. She raised the walls. She didn't strike back with fire. She drew a line and waited for the world to exhaust itself. And I will never, ever, let her fight alone again. And in the final chapter of their old life, just before they stepped into the new one, Mary closed the door. And for once, no one came knocking.